After reviewing 21 and a half movies besides Fantasia 2000, I'm now officially entering new territory. I have never seen this movie before, and a lot of times I forget that it exists to begin with. That is, until I see Cruella somewhere, because her fate was the only thing I knew. Walt Disney's 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure, was released to theaters in 2002, during the middle of a time when Disney was throwing around sequels left and right. A lot of people really like this movie, which kind of makes me more assured that this won't turn into another Cinderella 2.
Oh, it's disgusting! Gods!
So before we get to the review itself, which was way longer than I thought it would be, let's go through a plot synopsis. The movie starts off back at London, and Pongo and his family are packing up to move. I don't know, probably got evicted from their amount of pets. Meanwhile, Cruella de Vil, voiced by Suzanne Blakesley, sound familiar, is on probation, has a restraining order against her, and lost everything, even her Hot Wheels car. But she passes an art gallery and gains inspiration from a painting. The painting of a dot. She meets the artist Spampton from Deltarune, voiced by Martin Short, and discovers her new passion for art, which could restore her name into the spotlight. Patch, Bobby Lockwood, feels like an outsider and is forgotten so much that everyone doesn't realize that he's not in the moving truck and leaves him behind. So Patch runs away and meets his idol, Thunderbolt, and his sidekick, Little Lightning, who gets treated like shit. But Lightning, Jason Alexander, tells Thunderbolt that he's getting replaced and suggests that he does something heroic in the real world. But since Thunderbolt, Barry Bostwick, can't do anything without his script, he uses Patch to come up with his ideas, but all of their attempts fail, royally. After Cruella rejects all of Lars' paintings, she decides to break her restraining order and kidnap the puppies to use their coats as canvases.
What?
But Lars isn't okay with this because, well, he's sane, and in return he gets tied up. After the dogs do the Twilight bark, Patch and Thunderbolt goes to save them. Lightning arrives at the warehouse as well and gets them caught. The reason was to get rid of Thunderbolt so he wouldn't have to live in a shadow. A big cliche lie reveal happens and Patch breaks everyone out and they all use a bus as a getaway vehicle. Wario and Waluigi get arrested, as well as Lightning? Okay. As Cruella gets taken to a mental institute. The end. So let's talk about the movie. The first thing I will say off the bat is that it's a good continuance of the first movie, and what I mean by that is that the main events in the sequel just fits naturally. It immediately picks up from their Dalmatian plantation idea and the inspiration sensation of living in the country. With there being 99 puppies, of course one of them is going to feel invisible. It was bound to happen with a family like that, because you're competing with dozens of brothers and sisters. It's just realistic. Instead of having Cruella brainstorm another scheme to get her fur coat, they have her suffering from the aftermath of the first movie's events, making her find something new, which is the art of painting. And to top it all off, the Thunderbolt show, which served no purpose at all in the first film, is further explored and even serves as the plot's main theme. They also went as far as to keep the iconic Scratchy Hard outline design, which makes these two films feel even more connected. My point is that they didn't pull things out of their asses like most of the Disney sequels. In fact, most sequels in general, and instead work off of the source, which in the end makes the sequel's events more believable and whole. Compare that with Lady and Tramp 2. For reasons unexplained, that is, if there's even a reason at all, Tramp never told his kids that he's a stray, and his son somehow develops the desire to be wild and free. It didn't work off of the first movie's story and characters, which results in this not being believable. And I'll just mention this since Lady and Tramp 2 was brought up. Patch's voice actor is better than Scott Wolf's Scamp. You look at Patch and then hear his voice, and it fits perfectly. Simple as that. With Scamp, it's the opposite. I want you to take a really good look at this pup and imagine him with a teenager's voice. Pretty hard, right? Exactly. Jeez, I practically covered most of the film's positives, so before I discuss the rest of that, I'll just switch to negatives. Despite my praising for them making Cruella move on from furs to painting, her character in general was kind of the only thing that didn't feel connected to her original counterpart. She turns into something like Yzma where she gets comedically made fun of and beaten up, whereas in the first movie, Dumb and Dumber do that instead and she remains as the mystery of what would happen if she did that herself. The answer, she'd more than likely make progress, and you can believe that from how she yells and scares everyone. She could be Pongo's boggart since this adult dog cringes and fears at her name alone. In fact, nobody cringes and fears her. Remember that line, if she doesn't scare you, no evil thing will? Because Cruella is just as clumsy and pathetic as Ren and Stimpy, this line is now obsolete. Thunderbolt and Patch don't seem to have any hint of fear from the Devil Woman. How Patch describes Cruella sounds as if she just annoys him, and even though Lars wasn't aware of her true nature, he didn't show any fear either. Granted, Roger and Anita didn't cower towards her either in the first movie, but Roger was literally frozen from fear after he told Turkey Legs to fuck off, and Anita is Cruella's old schoolmate. She is of course going to grin and bear it when she's wanting to keep in touch with them, no matter how horrible they are, and especially when that person is making a big financial offer. The one and only scene where this Cruella is on par with the original is when Tweedledee and Tweedledum gasp from the side of her as she knocks out Thunderbolt. That seems like something that would happen in the first movie. But when she's so pathetic, not even able to kill a dog who was having a heart attack after seeing Artemis Fowl, it gives off the impression that she was toned down a lot for the younger audience, which again, doesn't make her character feel believable or connected to the first film. And while I can understand about the need of toning down the scary demon for the children, they made it where she wanted to use the puppy's furs as canvases. So it's like, what gives?
How could you do such a thing to the cute little puppies?
Poison them, drown them,
Bash them in the head!
I may be eccentric, but I am not a sicko!
I think the problems with the second movie's Cruella are these. 1. The writers forgot that she's a beloved and hated villain because of her temperamentality, and instead think she's iconic because she's just a female villain in a position of power. And 2. The writers were focusing primarily on comedy as their way to keep the audience seated, which is why she came out more like Yzma. Okay, I think I talked about Cruella long enough. Let's move along. Lars is a tolerable character, but his interactions with Cruella before he stood up against her is not my cup of tea.
My work both repels and attracts.
Oh, that is disgusting.
The last minute was kind of cringy with how Barry Bostick delivered his last line, all the puppies praising what Patch did, how he's one of a kind, stuff like that. It really felt rushed. Roger and Anita and Pongo and Purdy are barely in this movie, and it's a real slap to the face given how I said that they're both great couples in the first movie. It was hilarious when Cruella mentioned that she was on probation with a restraining order the first 2 times. Really, it is. But then they feel the need to repeat it over and over as if the audience wouldn't remember or figure it out.
The terms of your probation don't allow me to sell you any more food.
Merely a tale of loss and disappointment, probation and a restraining order.
How come she gets off with probation and a restraining order?
Our creativity cannot be thwarted by trivial manners like restraining orders. Yes! Sacrifices must be made!
I get it!
I love it that while Cruella wasn't thrown in jail, she still didn't get away with her crimes and is on probation. It's a perfect lesson that your actions have consequences! But how come Tom and Jerry get to walk free and own a ladies' boutique? Not only is that a weird choice because of the worst scene imaginable, but it shouldn't have happened. Cruella bailed them, and these 2 got caught along with her.
Jasper! Horace! It's time to finish the job.
And since we're getting onto the topic, SpongeBob and Patrick are even worse in here than they were in the first movie. Remember when I said that they can get scary? Well, you're definitely not going to get that in here. The news article during the credits says it all. They're just for comedy, which was definitely forced. The worst they do is leave Nanny down a well, and then before and after that, they're pretty pathetic. Fortunately, they appear halfway through the movie. Okay, I need to calm down now, I'm getting a headache again. So, since that's all with the negatives, let's talk about the positives now. Something that's interesting is that despite the story being as cliche as it could get, with the kid feeling invisible and big liar reveal shit, the film has a lot of surprises, which makes it pretty enjoyable upon the first watch. Little Lightning being a twist villain wasn't all good, but it actually fit the twist villain requirements. There's hints played throughout the beginning where Lightning McQueen is overshadowed and ignored, and instead of the twist being revealed in the 3rd act of the movie, it's before the 2nd act. Just like Syndrome, this perfectly gives us enough leftover screen time to enjoy him as a villain. That part didn't work, however. When Nanny started putting on the dog collars, I was so sure that Patch would lose his tags and have an even harder time getting home. But instead, his tags is used by Cruella to find the puppy's new home.
Did not see that coming.
The biggest unpredictable twist to me is this scene. All the puppies are ready to escape, but Thunderbolt is just sulking in his cage that is wide open. And when Patch looked at him, I immediately thought he was going to say something like, "Thunderbolts, we have to get out of here! If Zebra Cakes catches us, we're sure to be turned into custom puppy dog leather boots! Please, Thunderbolt, you're not just an actor, you're a real super dog!" And then Thunderbolt's like, "Yeah, okay," and they take off. But instead, Patch looks at Thunderbolt and just turns away, leaving his idol behind after being used. And when Thunderbolt comes back, instead of the movie making him do some heroic act, Thunderbolt embraces what he does best, which is acting. He plays dead to distract the villains, causes Lightning to cry at his corpse, which in turn makes me cry from the sheer amount of cringe that was, kisses him on the cheek since the internet was rising in popularity in 2002, and then buys the puppies the time they needed to escape. Okay, jokes aside, Thunderbolt's redemption isn't good, but you definitely don't see it coming, and it's not complete cringe, that I can appreciate. And Barry Bostwick was a good choice to voice Thunderbolt, and he even got a few smirks out of me. More than likely, you'll find the voice acting forced or overdone, and I couldn't agree more, but it actually works for a character that is dim-witted, egotistical, and has done nothing but acting in his life. It fits really well. The last 20 seconds of dialogue, however, an exception. It's like, what the hell happened?
I'm just an actor. But you are a real, one-of-a-kind wonder dog.
This is embarrassing.
And now all we have left are the songs. Unless you really like them, you're no doubt going to forget within a day. I definitely will when I review The Sword in the Stone and The Jungle Book. As always, I'll be ranking these songs from worst to best. Third and last place, One of a Kind. The one notable thing I can say is that I like it that they added canine crunchies without changing the entire thing, and why does it sound as if it belongs in Phineas and Ferb? Second place, I'm Seeing Spots. It's a great duet song with this nice foreshadowing to Cruella's fate. First place, Try Again. It's a jazzy beat that isn't too bad honestly, and I noticed the hidden Mickey before you ask. You guys don't need to tell me in the comments. So that was my 101 Dalmatians 2 review. This was an interesting video to make since this was one of the Disney sequels I hadn't watched, and my final thoughts is that it's good. It's really good. Not Bambi 2 or Cinderella 3 good, but you know, it's good. As long as I don't focus on all the negatives I've mentioned. For a Disney sequel about puppies, it did a better job than Lady and the Tramp 2, which is why I'm giving the 2001 101 Dalmatians 2 Patch's London Adventure movie, oh god the title's long, a 7 out of 10. The movie is unpredictable, despite having the lie reveal theme and twist villain, and the story is very original. Wait a minute. Middle child feels invisible. The middle child gets left behind as their family travels. Two guys break into their home. Uh-oh, did Disney copy off of Home Alone? Maybe we need to meet the Robinsons sooner.